Hello, welcome to Barenaked Music. I am, as always, your host, Barenaked Lewis, and today we are wrapping up our weeks-long love affair with Barenaked Ladies. This all started a few weeks ago when I gave you my brief review of their latest release, In Flight. I followed that up with my top 10 singles that charted in the top 40 in either the US or Canada. And then I followed that up with my top 10 album tracks. And in each one of those, I talked a lot about why I liked Barenaked Ladies. So I'm not going to talk about why I like Barenaked Ladies. We're just going to jump right into it. Today, we're going to rank the albums of Barenaked Ladies. A full album ranking. It's been a while since I've done one of those. Because we are talking about the Barenaked Ladies, the unofficial sponsor of today's discussion is Canada Dry Zero Sugar Ginger Ale. That's good ginger ale. Okay, we're ready? It's the quickest preamble I think I've ever done. Before we get into the ranking, we got to do the subjectivity notice. There is no such thing as objectively good or objectively bad music. There is only music that we like and music that we do not like. This is a guiding philosophy here at Barenaked Music. That means as long as we're talking about this stuff, it's a wonderful conversation. It's fun. It's entertaining. It's informative. It is our chance to see the world from somebody else's perspective, which is always nice. It only goes off the rails as soon as one or the other of us starts thinking in terms of being right or wrong. So let's just avoid that. I'm not making objective claims here because objective claims in this area are impossible to make. I'm just telling you these are how... this is how I would stack the albums, okay? Also, since this is an album ranking, we got to talk about the ground rules. When we rank albums here at Barenaked Music, we rank original studio albums that have as their primary purpose being a collection of songs. So original, we don't do compilations, greatest hits albums. We don't do reimaginings, even though I highly recommend both of these. Studio, we don't do live albums. This was my Rock Spectacle is how this is pronounced. It's French name, not an English one, so it's not Rock Spectacle. It's Rock Spectacle. If you want to put the at the end, oh, that just makes you feel good. This was my gateway drug into Barenaked Ladies fandom. It was the first album of theirs that I bought, and I love it because it is a good sampling of the songs from their first 3 albums performed live, and they are a very good live band. I think there's a discussion here as to whether they are better live or in the studio. I lean towards live. But it's not really a greatest hits album, although the hits that they had are fairly represented here. It's a good intro to their catalog. I have a second album, live album, the most recent one that they've released, that I'm mostly picking up here because I plunked down my extra few bucks to buy the autographed copy of it. So we don't do original, we do original, we do studio, we do albums, so we don't do EPs. And then finally, we do albums that have as their purpose being a collection of songs, which is the wording that I use to exclude things like Christmas albums and soundtracks. Not saying they're not good albums, it's just they don't really play by the same rules, so we don't really want to include them. And this is the clause that I'm going to use to eliminate Snack Time. Snack Time is an album of children's songs that Barenaked Ladies recorded. That I'm not a huge fan of. I don't think it's a bad album per se, it's just... there are bits that an adult audience can appreciate, but so I saved myself the heartache of trying to find a place for it in the lineup just by pulling it out because it's not an album in the true sense of the word. Ready? Okay. Before we get into the ranking itself, let's have a fortifying sip of good ginger ale. Okay, when we take out all of that stuff, we take out all the live albums and all of that, we are left with 14 albums released between 1992's Gordon and this year's 2023's In Flight. If you've not watched one of my album ranking videos before, a quick reminder. If you have watched but haven't watched one in a while, a quick reminder. If you've never watched one, a quick tutorial. When I think about relative quality of albums, the first thing I do is I assign letter grades, and that just helps me sort the list pretty heavily. C is an average competent album. It's what you would expect from an album. If you know that an album is recorded by a professional musician under professional circumstances, real studio, real producer, all of that stuff, then it's going to be a C. If it is a good album, okay, this is better than the typical, this is better than the norm, that gets it a B. If it's fantastic, ooh, I love it, then it's up in A range. If it's lacking in something, it's less than I expected it to be, that makes it a D. And if it is ghastly, holy mother of God, what the hell is going on here, that puts it down into F territory. Of these 14 albums, I've got one C, I've got two Bs, and the rest are A's. So normally at this point I would say, so, they're all good, just pick a place and dive in. Well, no, there are a couple of things that I will say. Don't dive in at this point. The water is shallow. Don't dive here. But once we get past that, then from that point on, pick a spot and dive. You're good. Coming in at number 14, bottom of the list, bottom of the heap. It is my 1C album. To be fair, I'm giving it a C+. 2017's Fake Nudes. I meant to mention, if I didn't, that there was something funky going on with Ed's voice. Ed Robertson, singer and guitarist for Barenaked Ladies. There's something funky going on with his voice. It started a few albums ago, and it was at its most noticeable here on Fake Nudes. Like he was swallowing the sound rather than emitting it. There was just something going on. And that is a problem for me when I listen to this album. It just doesn't sound right. But also part of the problem here is that this is Kevin. This is Kevin Hearn. There's a lot of Kevin Hearn on this album. And again, I like Kevin Hearn as a person. I don't much care for his songwriting. And this has got his fingerprints all over it. So if you like Kevin better than I do, you're probably going to really like this album. But I've got it number 14. Okay, first of my 2B albums. I've considered not including In Flight because it is recent. I've only owned this for about a month. I've only listened to it maybe 6 times. It's entirely possible that this is going to, as time goes, that this is really going to grow on me. I'm not sure that it will, but it's entirely possible, he said stammeringly. So it feels kind of unfair for me to include it. But I am including it, and as of today, it's in the number 13 slot. Excuse me. Best songs on here are Just Wait and Wake Up, the two Jim Cregan songs that I really emphasized in the review that I did. And Ed's best song in a few years, I Am Asking You To. Those are all winners. We have a handful of skippers on here. Enough Time is a skipper. Reading off of my. Too Old is a skipper. See the Tower, The Dream Hotel, The Peace Lady. In other words, all of Kevin's songs except Ed's Too Old, which is just, we talked about that before. So there's enough ballast dragging this thing down that as it is today, it's at number 13. It may creep up. Coming in at number 12, we've got Detour de Force from 2021. It seems to me like it could be interpreted that I am not encouraging you to buy this album. It's way down here towards the bottom. I mean, it's 12th out of 14. Ooh, it must not be good. But I'm actually giving this thing a good solid B+, and it's just a skosh away from A-. I mean, this is a surprisingly good album. I will be honest, I think part of the reason why I think it's as good is that it came after Fake Nudes, which I thought was not good. And so this thing stands out a little bit in comparison. But we've got some good songs on here. Jim has a couple of really good songs. We've got Here Together, which is good. We've got Paul Chambers, which is just brilliant. An Ed song, Man-Made Lake, is wonderful. Man-Made Lake, co-written with Donovan Woods, the same guy that he co-wrote I Am Asking You To on In Flight with. So there's some good stuff on here. And then there's some Kevin. There's Big Backyard, Bylaw, the National Park. Bylaws I find particularly frustrating. We've got some strong stuff and we've got some ballast, and if we can get rid of some of that ballast, then this is going to make it up into A territory. Overall good. Couple of songs. If I'm being fair, there's a Kevin song on here that I'm a little fond of. I'm not going to go so far as to say I really like this song, but I do kind of like it. It's called Internal Dynamo. And one of the other negatives I have is that with songs like Flip, that's full on Ed Robertson in I'm trying to write a top 40 friendly radio hit. And I just, anytime they start breaking out in kinds of choruses, it's like, skip to the next one. And we got a lot of that stuff going on here. Okay, number 11. From here on out, we are in A territory. These are all strongly recommended. I may point out that they have skippers here and there, but they are all strongly recommended. Coming in at number 11, the first album in the post-Stephen Page era, All in Good Time. This is from 2010. Very strong songs are Summertime and Jim's On the Lookout and I Saw It. The weak songs, the skippers for me, are the two Kevin songs, Jerome and Watching the Northern Lights. But overall, a strong album. 4 Seconds is also good. Coming in at number 10. Number 10, we've got 2007's Barenaked Ladies Are Men. And I stopped there and I rubbed my lip and I thought for a second about whether I should talk about this or not. They released 2 albums back to back, one in 2006, one in 2007. 2006 was Barenaked Ladies Are Me, 2007 was Barenaked Ladies Are Men. As you can see, they have similar artwork. The type on the back is essentially the same, the font, the typeface. The artwork, like I just said, is the same. The liner notes look the same. I mean, these things, if you are visually oriented, these 2 albums are very difficult to distinguish from one another. The fact that one is called Barenaked Ladies Are Me and the other is called Barenaked Ladies Are Men makes it that much more frustrating. And one of the things I considered doing was combining the 2, because when the first of the 2 was released, at that time, one of the release versions that you could get was a USB stick that had the album, that had the whole album, and they put both albums on it at one time. You could have bought it as a big-ass double album when it was first released. And so I considered putting them together. But I finally decided to go ahead and separate them out. They are officially 2 separate albums. So, number 10, Barenaked Ladies Are Men from 2007, the latter of the 2. Again, I'm giving it a good solid A-. We've got some good stuff on here. Down to Earth is one of my favorite songs. Fun and Games, Quality, What a Letdown, Half a Heart. A lot of good stuff on here. No skippers. It's just that there are a lot of songs that, while they are not skippers, they're also not, top of the line. It's not that the whole thing is, it's just one hit after one hit after one hit. But overall, a strong album. Like Barenaked Ladies Are Men. Coming in at number 9. If you are a modern fan of Barenaked Ladies, if you've only been made aware of them within the last, say, 10, 15 years, chances are good it's because of this album, Grinning Streak. Grinning Streak has Boomerang was a minor hit. Odds Are was a huge hit. And this is the second album that they released after Steven left the band. And this is the first album where it seems to me that Ed is going out of his way to write radio-friendly hits. Songs like Odds Are. Odds Are is a good song, don't get me wrong. But it sounds like it was written to be put on the radio. And this album is where that starts. But this is still a strong album. That sounds like a criticism. No, I'm just putting that there as a mile marker. Grinning Streak is a strong album. We've got some of my favorite songs on here. Crawl is on here. Limits, Boomerang, one of the singles. Fantastic songs. All three of those are songs that I do when I perform live. We've got a couple that are close to skippers, but not quite. That's my note under my skipper column in my spreadsheet. My note is Not Really, Keeping It Real, and Daydreamin' are close. Daydreamin', Kevin's song. Good album. Recommended. Coming in at number 8, Everything to Everyone from 2003. Also getting an A-. It's a strong album. We have no skippers on here. I listened to the whole thing front to back. The better songs on here are Next Time, which is wonderful, Testing 1, 2, 3, Unfinished, and Aluminum. The problem is very similar to the two that I have preceding it. We've got a couple of really high highs, no real valleys, but I want more of the highs. Compared to the later albums, it's like high, super high peak to less high peak to super high peak. This is high peak to medium high peak back up to high peak, right? I mean, there are songs on here like Have You Seen My Love? It's a perfectly wonderful song. It's a pretty little ballad, and I don't skip it, but I don't feel the need to listen to it. Second Best. First couple of times I heard it, I thought it was fantastic, and now take or leave. Maybe Katie, I can take or leave, right? They're not bad. They just didn't have much in the way of staying power. So, but still a strong album. Don't get me wrong. Coming in at number 7, we've got the other one, the other Blam album, Barenaked Ladies Are Me from 2006. Strong album. I think it is a stronger album than, obviously, Barenaked Ladies Are Men, because that I had at number 10 and this one I've got at number 7. So obviously I think it's a stronger album. But these two albums together, to me, are part of that long discussion that often comes up. If you've got a double album and you look at it and you think, ooh, I could whittle this down to a single album, and that single album would be better than the double album because there's a certain amount of filler. We've almost got that here. I'm just going to stop short of saying that this album is filler, right? These two together would be a knockout of a double album. Fantastic double album. If you forced me to subdivide it into a strong album and a weak album, I would come close to what they've done here. There would be a few on Barenaked Ladies Are Me that would, a few that would swap. But overall, this is a really strong album. On my list, it's my first A. From here on out, we're A's or A pluses. We've got the particular winners are Adrift, which I talked about in my last video because I adore that song. Take It Back, I love that song. We've really only got one skipper on here, and that's the obligatory Kevin song, Vanishing. But overall, I really like this album. Good, strong A. Nice album. Okay. Coming in at number 6. Maroon. Maroon from 2000. Ooh, 23 years ago. Again, a good solid A. We have no skippers. We've got some hits on here. Pinch Me, Falling for the First Time. Off the Hook, which I talked about last week, was the first Off the Hook is the 10th song on here. The first 9 songs on this CD, they performed on that Maroon tour, which was the first time I saw them in concert. And that includes songs like Sell, Sell, Sell and Baby Seat, which I think are not as good as Off the Hook, or even Tonight is the Night I Fell Asleep at the Wheel. This is a strong album. Gotta love Maroon. Number 5, I think of all of the decisions I've made here, there are a few decisions that I think most dyed-in-the-wool Barenaked Ladies fans are going to be upset with me over. One of those decisions is I chose to lop this thing out. The other decision is that I have at number 5, for God's sake, ahead of Maroon, ahead of Everything to Everyone, I have 2015's Silverball. I really like Silverball. I mean, Steven leaves the group, and I'm thinking, okay, all things being equal up to this point, as much as I like Stephen Page, I know that I like Ed Robertson's songwriting just a little bit more. So I'm thinking, okay, if we had to lose one or the other, I think Barenaked Ladies without Stephen is better than Barenaked Ladies without Ed. Okay, so I'm a little apprehensive, but I'm relatively optimistic. When All in Good Time came out, I thought, okay, we're good, we're safe. This is going to work. When Grinning Street came out, I thought, okay, this is good. This is like comparable to what we've had before. Good. This is like, we may actually, hit even stronger heights. And then Silverball came out, and I thought, oh man, if this is the direction we're going, oh my God. Now, it turns out that was not the direction we were going, because the next album after this was Fake Nudes, and we came crashing to earth. But for one glorious moment here, we were in the stratosphere, because I got to tell you, I really like Silverball. I really like songs like Matter of Time, Toe to Toe, the title track, Silverball. Duct Tape Heart is, okay, one of those where Ed is trying to get on the radio, but still it's good. Passcode I talked about in the album tracks. Narrow Streets by Jim. We've got some really strong material on here, and I really like Silverball. You did really good, guys. Love Silverball. Okay. Number 4. From here on out, we're in A/A plus territory. Like literally, my grades are either A/A plus or A plus. My first A/A plus is the one that started it all, 1992's Gordon. Gordon is almost a perfect album. We've got some of the best songs they ever did. Hello City, Enid, Brian Wilson, If I Had $1 Million. We've got some of my favorite album tracks. Blame It On Me, Crazy. Oh, I love Crazy. Oh, I'm a few bricks short of a load, but a full load always hurt my back. I love that line. Got a lot of really good stuff on here. The thing that's holding it back from being an A plus on its own right, the thing that's putting it at number 4 is that we've got 2 skippers on here. I Love You, apologies to Andy Cregan, I Love You, and New Kid on the Block suffers from being a timely, it's a dated song. But Gordon, strong album, very strong debut. Love Gordon. Coming in at number 3, if you are as I was heading into Grinning Streak, if you are a recent fan of Barenaked Ladies, chances are it's because of Odds Are and those songs. If you are the Next Generation Back fan of Barenaked Ladies, chances are it's because of Stunt from 1998. Excuse me. Stunt, the album that unleashed It's been 1 week on the world. The hits off of Stunt were 1 week, and It's All Been Done. I blanked for a second on the name of that song. There's a lot of good music on here. We've got Light Up My Room, which is great. We've got Some Fantastic, which I talked about last week. We've got Call and Answer is good. Leave is okay. My eyes are drifting all around. Never Enough is good. Who Needs Sleep is good. I mean, it's a good, strong album. No skippers. It ought to be an A+, but no, it's A to A+, because it's a strong album, but not every song is strong. I don't think it's a perfect album, for example. Okay, my last two albums. First one gets an A/A+, the other one gets an A+. And those of you who know the discography of this band, you know what these two remaining albums are. At number 2, I've got their sophomore album, 1994's Maybe You Should Drive. The songwriting on this album is just stellar. We've got songs like Jane, Intermittently, These Apples, probably my favorite Barenaked Ladies song of all on this album. Am I the Only One is great. Alternative Girlfriend is great. Life in a Nutshell is great. Everything on here is great with the exception of Little Tiny Song. Sorry, Andy. Little Tiny Song is not one that I'm particularly fond of. But apart from A is on this one. I mean, if we take Little Tiny Song off of this thing, this now becomes an A+ album because it now becomes a perfect album. As it is now, though, the only perfect album that the Barenaked Ladies have released is 1996's Born on a Pirate Ship. First time I listened to this album, I didn't think much of it. I thought it sounded rough. But the more I've listened to it, the more it has grown on me. Every time I listen to it, I like it a little bit more than I liked it before. And it's the one I like the most. And I don't think it's done growing yet. I think it will eventually be one of my favorite albums of all time. It's eventually going to lodge up there in Abbey Road and Pet Sounds. It's heading up to that level for me. Before you write that comment down below, no, I'm not saying that this is as good as Pet Sounds. Wind it in, okay? I'm saying that for me, this is going to be one of my top 5 of all time albums that I have to rescue when the house is on fire. And frankly, it may already be there. I've got 3 songs that are A- level songs. I'm going back to my notes. Spider in My Room, which is a Jim song, which overall I like. It's just Straw Hat and Old Dirty Hank and Stomach versus Heart. The 2 leadoff songs are good, A- level songs. I've got 3 that get A's: Call Me Calmly, Break Your Heart, and In the Drink. Everything else, A+. And that everything else includes I Know, which is one of my favorites. This Is Where It Ends, one of my favorites. Shoebox, Just a Toy. I love this album. Born on a Pirate Ship, 1996, the only perfect album they've got, and my number 1 Barenaked Ladies album. So, what do you think? What did I get right? What did I get wrong? Leave that comment down below. I always love hearing from you. If you enjoyed today's video, I would appreciate it if you'd click that like button. If you're going to click that like button, go ahead and click the subscribe button as well. And while you're down there clicking, go click that bell for notifications. I would appreciate it for whatever that's worth. And it's free to do, so it's probably not worth a whole lot. But thanks again for watching today. I've enjoyed it. And I hope that the rest of your day is harmonious. See you soon.